The music swelled, the organist hit the triumphant chord, and I, Richard **, proud father of the bride, was perfectly on cue to escort my daughter, Jessica **, down the aisle. She was radiant, a vision in white, and the air was thick with expectation and love. We had reached the point of no return, the final few steps toward the altar, when it happened. Her fiancé, the man who was about to become my son-in-law, Eric **, moved. He didn't move to smile or shift his weight in anticipation. He moved his foot out, slightly, subtly, but deliberately, right into the path of my size 12 shoe. My heel caught, my balance vanished, and I tumbled forward with a sickening, heavy thud, pulling Jessica's arm with me. While I managed to twist my body just enough to save her from a serious fall, I ended up sprawled on the pristine marble floor, my expensive tuxedo rumpled, my glasses askew, and a sharp, blinding pain shooting up my knee. The beautiful moment evaporated into chaos. And then, the worst thing possible happened. A ripple of nervous laughter spread through the guests, quickly turning into outright guffaws. But the person who laughed loudest, a short, sharp, triumphant bark of malice, was Eric himself. He stood over me, not offering a hand, not checking on his bride, but smiling. A purely mean, victorious smile, as if this humiliation was the final, satisfying component of his wedding day plan. The laughter died, replaced by stunned silence when Jessica screamed, "Eric, what is wrong with you?" And he just shrugged, still smirking. What Eric didn't know was that I am not just a father. I am a retired aerospace engineer with a mind trained to recognize precise, deliberate calculation, and I had been quietly investigating him for months. I knew then, lying on the floor, that his trip wasn't an accident. It was a final, aggressive power play to assert dominance over me, and, by extension, my daughter. Was I wrong to interrupt the wedding, not to complain about my fall, but to reveal the crushing, damning evidence I held against him, using the entire wedding party as my jury? Tell me if your daughter's fiancé humiliated you publicly and maliciously on her wedding day. Would you let the ceremony continue, or would you expose his darkest secret right there at the altar? My name is Richard **, and I am 65 years old. I spent 40 years designing complex flight control systems, which means I operate with a deep understanding of cause, effect, and intent. The world, to me, is governed by physics and verifiable data. The wedding was a lavish affair, costing easily $150,000, mostly paid for by me and my wife, Diane **. Jessica, 30, is my only daughter, sweet, natured, and sometimes too trusting. A trait Eric exploited brilliantly. Eric, 32, presented himself as a successful, self-made entrepreneur in tech consulting. He was handsome, charismatic, and had won over most of our family and friends with his confident facade. But my engineer's gut had always signaled a fatal flaw in his design. His stories never quite added up, his wealth seemed too instantaneous, and his charm felt too rehearsed. His relationship with Jessica, too, always felt slightly possessive, masked by over-the-top public displays of affection. The deeper my unease grew, the deeper I dug. I started 6 months ago. Using old professional contacts and my own background in forensic investigation, a necessary skill when dealing with industrial sabotage, I decided to run a quiet, professional background check on Eric. What I found was deeply disturbing, a systematic pattern of fraud and deceit that would have made him a danger to Jessica's financial future. and possibly her physical safety. First, the business. Eric's successful tech consulting firm was, in reality, a near-shell company. It was heavily in debt, sustained only by a precarious chain of fraudulent contracts, and was currently the subject of an internal audit by a former client for embezzlement. His wealth was borrowed money and dangerously inflated assets. Second, the character. He had a history of domestic violence. A previous relationship ended with a restraining order, buried deep in court records under a different town, and a slight variation of his middle name. This was the most terrifying find. He was not just a liar, he was a potential threat. I had compiled a dossier of unimpeachable evidence, court records, financial statements, and confidential audit reports. I planned to confront Jessica with everything the day after the wedding, fearing that exposing him sooner would be too emotionally damaging and might cause her to dig in her heels to defend him. I was waiting for the perfect moment to pull the plug without causing catastrophic emotional damage. The fall changed everything. That deliberate trip, the victorious laugh, the pure malice in his eyes. That was not a man who accidentally made a mistake. That was a calculated demonstration of power and contempt, a clear signal of the abusive dynamic he planned to introduce into their marriage. He wasn't just planning to marry my daughter. He was planning to dominate and control her, starting with the public humiliation of her father. The time for waiting was over. As I lay there, supported by a few frantic ushers, Jessica knelt beside me, tears streaming down her face. "Dad, are you okay? Eric, help him." Eric, however, was preoccupied. He was straightening his tie, looking annoyed by the disruption. "Honestly, Richard, what are you doing? It's just a trip. Get up, we're late." That's when I knew I couldn't move, not physically, but I had to move the narrative. I had to pivot the spectacle from my humiliation to his exposure. I slowly pulled a small, professionally printed manila envelope from the inner pocket of my tuxedo jacket. It was sealed with a tamper-proof sticker. "I can't get up yet, Jessica," I said, my voice shaky but loud enough for the quiet crowd to hear. I ignored the pain in my knee, focusing only on the performance. "But before we continue, I have a mandatory prenuptial disclosure." I handed the envelope to the best man, Mark *, a decent guy who looked utterly bewildered. "Mark, please read the contents of the attached letter out loud to the guests. It pertains to the integrity of the marriage contract." The noise level in the vast church instantly dropped to zero. Eric's smirk vanished. His eyes widened in panic, a genuine lizard-brain fear finally replacing his entitlement. He knew instantly that his secrets were in that envelope. So that's the situation I was in, lying injured on the floor of a $150,000 wedding. I was publicly humiliated by my malicious son-in-law, Eric. I had just instructed the best man to read a damning letter outlining Eric's systemic financial fraud and documented history of domestic violence to the entire wedding congregation. Eric was already under investigation for embezzlement, and his past was about to be laid bare. Before I tell you about the ensuing chaos and the ultimate collapse of the wedding, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have let the best man read the letter, or would you have simply had the officiant declare the ceremony invalid right then and there? I chose the public reading. Eric's intent was public humiliation. My counter-move had to be public obliteration. The wedding guests weren't just an audience. They were witnesses who needed to hear the truth so that no one could later claim I was an overprotective father making baseless accusations. The best man, Mark, was hesitant, but the sheer gravity of the moment and the silence of the room compelled him. He broke the seal and began to read, his voice shaky at first, then growing stronger as the content took hold. To the esteemed guests and members of the clergy, this letter serves as a legal notice of material misrepresentation and fiduciary risk. Mark read the facts, cold and hard. He read about the ** restraining order ** filed by MS. Name redacted in 2018. He read about the ** embezzlement investigation ** currently underway by Tech Corp Solutions Inc. and the documentation that showed Eric's consulting firm was technically insolvent. The documents attached were clear copies of the court orders and the audit findings. As Mark read the list of charges, the effect on the audience was like a wave of pure revulsion. People gasped, murmurs erupted, and then, a single woman near the back, a friend of Eric's mother, shouted, "I knew it. That man is a snake." Eric lost all composure. He lunged toward Mark to snatch the letter, but the ushers, now acting on instinct, restrained him. Jessica, still kneeling by my side, looked up at Eric, her beautiful face contorted not just by tears, but by sheer, nauseating betrayal. "Is this true, Eric? The restraining order, the debt?" Eric stopped struggling, his breath ragged. He looked around the church, saw the hundreds of horrified faces, and knew the game was over. He didn't deny it. He just screamed, "It was my past. Why did you have to interfere, you old man?" That was all Jessica needed. She stood up, slowly, her white veil hanging limp. She looked at the man who had deliberately tripped her father and had lied to her for years, and then she delivered the final blow. "This wedding is over," Jessica said, her voice quiet, firm, and ringing with a newfound strength. She turned to the officiant. "Please declare the ceremony void." The officiant, a long-time family friend, looked at the chaos, the sobbing bride, the restrained groom, and the evidence on the page, and nodded. "By the power vested in me, this ceremony is hereby cancelled. Please disperse." The wedding was officially null and void. The guests, rather than dispersing, immediately turned into a unified force of social justice. Eric was shunned instantly. He was escorted out of the church by the ushers and 2 security guards that I, the paranoid engineer, had hired precisely because I suspected he might try something erratic. The aftermath was immediate and devastating for Eric. The public reading of the documents served as an undeniable, documented release of information that immediately damaged his professional life. The embezzlement investigation, already pending, moved quickly to formal charges based on the evidence presented to the public. He was professionally disgraced, facing serious legal action, and completely cut off from the wealthy network he sought to marry into. Jessica, initially heartbroken, quickly moved from grief to gratitude. She realized that my fall, the humiliating trip, was the necessary catalyst that saved her from a life of financial ruin and potential abuse. My wife, Diane, was livid about the ruined wedding, but endlessly thankful I had listened to my instincts. The $150,000 for the wedding was mostly gone, but the costs of a nasty, expensive divorce and the cost of Jessica's safety were immeasurably higher. I spent the rest of the day in an emergency room getting a minor fracture treated. But as I sat there, holding Jessica's hand, she looked at me and said, "Dad, you didn't trip. You just saved my life." I had lost a tuxedo and gained a slightly fractured knee, but I had saved my daughter from the catastrophic failure of marrying a sociopath. I proved that sometimes the only way to stop a disaster is to engineer a perfect counter. Disaster. Like this video if you believe a father's intuition is the best background check. Subscribe for more stories where weddings end in dramatic arrests. Share your final thoughts on Eric's intentional trip in the comments section below. I'll see you all in the next story.